Hey everyone, welcome to Shunya One, episode 142. Today we have actually two people from the United States joining us. One of them being Amit, our co-host,
Yes, I
and
am.
yeah,
I'm here for now. I'm back soon though. But yeah, I am
yes,
here for
and
now.
and while we have you in the east coast of the U.S., we also have our guest over there, which is a sheer coincidence.
It was.
But
I was. I when he said. I had absolutely no idea. Right. I thought that he was. We were. I really thought we were imposing on him by recording late in the evening and stuff like that. Turns out it was the same time for him as it was for me.
exactly, so it's just me then sitting here in the evening. So,
For
but
now,
great.
yes.
I'm great. It was a fun conversation. I think
Mhm.
we got into some really cool stuff. We spoke to Rahul Pagidipati, as he is called in the US, uh, who is the
Uh,
co-CEO of ZebPay, and yeah, and ZebPay is obviously a huge crypto exchange, which we will get into. It's an interesting conversation because we've not had too much talk about crypto on this show
mhm.
for a while, right, Amit?
It's been a
It's been
while.
a
I
while.
think. I mean, we've had a few crypto people on in the past, but this was a. It's been a while, and not just has it been a while. I mean, like the conversation was fairly wide ranging, right? We got into all different kinds of aspects around crypto, regulatory. We spoke a little bit about like what are different kinds of projects that are out there, just a whole bunch of different things. So I thought it was really interesting, and
Yeah,
he was great, right? I mean, like he gave us like I think a great deal of insight and was just like really upfront about some things and some challenges that existed as well.
exactly. And especially now when, crypto is a whole different thing than probably when we spoke to folks, pre-pandemic and, pre so many things which have happened in the industry. So let's jump right in and come back and talk to Rahul. Welcome, Rahul, from ZebPay. Hey, how is it going, man?
Hey guys, great to be here. It's nice Saturday morning and it's bright.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, indeed. It's a Saturday evening where I am, and ironically enough, even Amit is in your time zone. So
Yes, I am. Saturday
both of
morning
you
for
are
me too.
stateside on the East Coast.
Yes, we are.
Yep. I live in North Carolina, in Durham, North Carolina. It's a great college town, city, right next to Duke University.
Mhm.
And so, I guess you're in DC.
I'm in Washington D.C. That's right.
Cool.
Vienna, Virginia, at my brother's house.
Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, it's just funny that we finally got this set up, and obviously the three of us are in such different places. At least for both for Amit for sure.
Yeah, no,
So, but Rahul, thanks for making it, man. This is it's
uh,
really looking forward to the conversation, and
yeah.
welcome to the show, which is Shunya One. We talk about I shared earlier. We talk about tech. We talk about everything about the folks we speak to. So personally, I would love to ask, and for our listeners, to share a little backstory about how you got to where you are today. You're the CEO of ZebPay. ZebPay is one of the oldest crypto exchange, is at least for folks here in India who have who've used it. But
Sure.
give us a little journey on personally yourself, and then of course the company.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm the CEO of ZebPay. ZebPay is one of India's first and one of the biggest Bitcoin and crypto exchanges. We have millions of users, mostly in India, but also around the world.
Mhm.
Started in 2000. Really, I'd say the story started. ZebPay story started in 2014. The founders, there's three founders who started. The technical founder, a guy named Mahim Gupta, started the company, and then he met. He kind of started the skeleton of the company, and then he met, just like Bitcoin that has a ton of regulatory issues, right? So kind of as it evolved, met two other founders, and they kind of then kind of really hit the ground running in 2015. And then it became basically the largest Bitcoin exchange in Albany. It had like 70% market share. And as everyone knows, the Reserve Bank of India basically put out a circular in 2018, which kind of really, I'd say, put the fire out, at least in India.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin is pretty hard to put out completely. So, after the Supreme Court, overturned the Reserve Bank of India's circular, ZebPay came back, and now we're probably maybe second or third biggest Bitcoin exchange in India after YZRX and Binance. Yeah.
Wow.
And so,
And originally, the company is obviously not originally incorporated though here, right? I remember you guys. Were you was India always the sort of the home ground for what you guys were building?
yeah.
Or was it? Was there
The company is officially a Singapore company.
Right.
And we, the founders did a great job in the sense, because as you know, crypto is still not really regulated. It's still
Right.
kind of like in this gray area where people are trying to figure out, like, what is it? Is it a digital asset? Is it a stock? Is it a token? Is it a currency? And luckily, Singapore is pretty forward thinking, and so I think we did a really good job of, let's say, in a sense, headquartering there and domiciling there. And so ZebPay is officially a Singapore company. We're actually the only Indian exchange that kind of has like international operations. We have operations in Australia and in Singapore, and we can buy and sell globally with us. But India is definitely the kind of like the backyard.
What's the operational situation? Like, where do the people operate from?
Sure. Even though we were born in India, we're now a global company. There's literally employees around the world. We have, out of our almost 200 employees, maybe 20 of them are literally in other parts of the world, from the U.S., Singapore, Australia, Canada, the Netherlands, all over.
Right.
And so a good bit of the operations and customer service and tech is done from India.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Okay. And if I can ask, right, a little bit of history on how you sort of, the product itself, right, the crypto exchange, the Bitcoin exchange that you guys started, evolved, and, what are the kind of, let's say, unique innovations that you guys have focused on? Because again, as like you said, initially crypto was sort of washed out by Indian regulators, and now it's obviously back for a couple of, just over, I guess, a year or so now. How have you guys sort of innovated to make yourselves like the destination of choice, and what makes ZebPay unique today as a standout?
Yeah, so ZebPay's had a really cool, background story. And I'm gonna maybe start early, even where kind of when Bitcoin first came out. So I've been an entrepreneur and investor. I tell people, like, I'm a little bit of both. Being a really good investor, you kind of understand entrepreneurship, and if you're a really good entrepreneur, you also you should understand investing, because they're interrelated, they're connected. And I finished my MBA in 2008. Kind of right at the end of the financial crisis, and I got both a JD and an MBA, so I have a really good understanding of both law and business. So I'm actually technically my background is I'm an attorney. I'm a licensed attorney in Florida. I'm now inactive, but I was a licensed attorney in Florida, and using the business and the law side, I kind of, and I'd been an investor for several years, but at that point I'd stumbled upon the Bitcoin white paper in 2011, and this is way early. This is during Bitcoin's first big run up, and you would say, what is that? That's when it went from like basically a penny to like $10, right? And
oh wow.
You'd be like, oh wow, and $10, the price was nothing back then. Yeah, but it went from basically not existing to then something being worth like let's say $50 million, $100 million market cap, which is a pretty big market cap for a brand new asset class. People who really didn't get it.
Right.
And I read this white paper in 2011, and I was basically like, man, this is either the most amazing thing that ever, or it's the biggest Ponzi scheme in the world, right? And
I think we know what side you came down finally.
Yeah.
Right?
Eventually, I realized it was that it was, but for the first 6 months or so, I'm like, this is like an accident waiting to happen. People are buying these things, they're gonna get burnt. And I actually, I used to code when I was younger. I don't really code anymore, but I used to, I'm technical enough. I can understand code. And so I dug into it. I had I'd been running a company. Then I had one of our IT guys look at it, and we actually started a Bitcoin miner. We started mining Bitcoin for a little bit and seeing, how does it actually work? And I said to him, hey, listen, I asked him, are you sure this is not some sort of Trojan horse, right? Are you sure, like, if I'm installing a miner on my computer, that this is not like some sort of NSA or Russian secret service that's trying to take over my computer? And he went the code as I looked at this, but like, I don't know, I can't guarantee that it's not. And that was actually a big mistake, because what happened was I probably should have dug deeper. I kind of should have realized that, see, he's never going to tell me that something is secure, right? And so my advice for everyone else is that don't trust other people to do your diligence for you. You have to do it yourself. And our head network administrator was going to be cautious. He was never going to tell me that this is legit, because it's a brand new idea. And so that kind of slowed me down for a year. Like, I didn't, when I first saw it, I kind of said, hey, I wasn't sure, right, if it's a virus or real or not. And so at this time, it went from like, $0 up to $30, down to $2, and then it was around $10. It was around $10 for a couple of years. Okay. And I just get, every like, once a month, I'd be like, oh yeah, that Bitcoin thing, I'd go in and check the price. I'm like, okay, it's roughly about the same, about $10. It's not going anywhere. But it kept like, the seed was planted in my head that this is actually a really interesting idea. And even if Bitcoin's not it, someone's going to take this and solve it, right? It's kind of like, you'd seen that, like, maybe we'd not gone to the moon yet, but we'd gotten, at least to the outer atmosphere, right? And it was feasible to me that the moonshot was coming. So at this point in 2012 and 13, I was like getting pretty convinced that this was legit. And so, like I said, it was then between about $10 and $100, right? And if everyone's like, oh man, that was nothing. But no, it's the exact same between, say, 10,000 and 100,000. It's that level of difference. But when people are like, oh, going from 10 to $100 is the exact same scenario, right? But people don't think about it that way. They think about, this is not that big of a difference. And it was slowly moving up, right? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my own deep dive into this. And then that's when I actually went in. I got my own miner, and I started mining, right? I went and bought some equipment. And then I was like, and I hadn't done this since I was a teenager, as a little kid. I actually went in and, command line, and you'd have to do stuff up and run nodes and, connect wires. And my wife was getting mad at me because we had a Bitcoin miner in our house. She's like, you got to kick that thing out. We're getting divorced. And I was like, well, can I move to the basement? She's like, okay. And I had a couple of miners in our basement. The good thing is it was during the wintertime, and so we got heat out of it. So it was the hottest. Yeah, no, it was awesome. I used to go down there when I was cold. But like I said, I basically became more convinced that this was real. And I was like, man, this is something we should buy. And around this time, I started buying some, but I had been running a company in India called Anai, and I started entrepreneurship, let's say 10 years early before that. And I called up the CEO of one of the companies which I helped found, and he was running. I said, listen, we should actually buy some Bitcoin. How do we do it in India? And so he kind of found out about ZebPay in a sense. It was called buysellbitco.in back then. It was a different company. And he reached out to Maheen, the CEO, and we bought some Bitcoin from him. It's pretty amazing. This is 2013 or so. Mm-hmm. And then flash forward, about 3 years later, I bumped up. I was at a Bitcoin conference in, let's say, in New York, and I saw Maheen Gupta. It said ZebPay. I was like, Maheen, I know you. Like, I don't know you directly, but we bought Bitcoin from you, and this is right around the time the Reserve Bank of India had basically banned Bitcoin, right? And I didn't reach out. I just bumped into it at a conference. I'm like, hey, how are you guys doing? We're doing great. It's like I'm actually out here raising money to go for ZebPay, but we just found out like a week ago that the RBI is kind of slamming the door shut. And I said, hey, I don't know if you're interested, but our family, we invest in startups. We invest in companies like this, and so and I don't mind taking on risk. Like I think I'm totally fine buying when everyone's running away. And so over a couple months, I met him and his other co-founders, and became convinced that the ZebPay team and brand and culture was pretty awesome. So we made a $15 million investment to buy about 20% of the company during that downtime. And then the company went through a couple of, let's say, strategic moves of like, how do we operate while let's say the Reserve Bank, the RBI kind of handcuffed them, and they kind of went abroad. And that's the reason why we have international operations. Right. And to back on your question of what makes the company different, really was this is the reason why we've had so much success in the past, and I'd say even while we're able to serve people well, is you got to do two core things. You got to make it very simple to buy, which we did. We have, kind of like one-click type buying, right? In fact, as time goes on, apps can get more complicated, and we're noticing that. That's the reason why we launched a new app. It's called Zeb, ZEBB, like Zeb.com. And this is just even easier, right? And so if you can come in and teach people how to buy and not complicate it, that's what ZebPay did really well. So it's really simple. And the second thing is we call it secure, being really, keeping the crypto secure, which is really important. If you have a very simple app and someone can hack into it, or someone can break into the vaults, then it's not a great place to invest either, right? So people kind of want kind of very easy ways to invest, but they also want to make sure that their money is very, very safe, right? And those are two things we work on really, really well. And so we dug deeper into that. And to wrap up the story, after we came on as a minority investor, the founders were basically had been building a company for 4 or 5 years, had gotten tired. They kind of bowed out. They wanted to get out. And so I basically bought them out. And then I became the CEO about a year and a half ago, in January 1, 2020, a year and a half. Me and our family office, the family office kept their minority stake, and I individually bought out the majority stake of the company. And me and an amazing team of people have now been running. And so we've grown from about 40 employees down up to now we almost have 200 employees. We're doing millions of dollars of volume per day. We got 30 coins that are listing, and so one of the largest fiat on ramps in India to buy crypto.
Well, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, right? I have a question from way early in your answer, right?
Yeah.
When you were mining Bitcoin out of your house with 2 machines, how long did it take for you to mine a coin? I'm just curious about that.
It took about, and this is a pretty nice machine. So the machine cost maybe $1,000 back then. It was about 1 Bitcoin per 2 weeks, 2 Bitcoins a month.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
No, interesting.
Yeah.
And that's when it was between 10 and 100.
That's when. Okay, so by the time I started mining, it was about $100.
$100. Okay, all right.
Right. So what ended up happening is, say you'd make about $200, and you'd have about a 5-month payback.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you
on
put
the
in
machine.
$1,000. Yeah.
On the machine.
But the electricity cost was there, but electricity was expensive, but it wasn't crazy expensive.
Yeah, again, you're talking 2 machines, right? So I guess that would not be the same kind of this. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay.
A really good number for this is the way it kind of changed. Really is, let's say, payback time. And I've been following this for a while. Like these Bitcoin mining hardware, sometimes they'd be as short as 1 month paybacks, right? And sometimes it'd be long as, let's say, 1 year, 2 year paybacks.
Okay.
Right. So it really is, in a sense, how much does the machine cost and how long does it take to get my money back from the machine? And now the really big thing is not the machines, it's the electricity.
Right.
Right. It's the power. Back then, the power was big, but the power wasn't the biggest factor.
Right.
It was having access to the mining equipment.
Interesting. No, I was just curious about that because now mining is such a hugely intensive thing, right? So running it out of your basement means it's not that's not an industrial operation, right? That's a do-it-yourself kind of thing. Yeah, so interesting to kind of get that. Let's see.
Yeah. Now what happens? Most people who are doing it by themselves, they plug into a thing called a mining pool. I don't know if you guys know what that is. And so, see, if you mine directly with Bitcoin, it really is like a lottery. And let's just say you're having a lottery every 10 minutes. And the way Bitcoin works is every 10 minutes, there's a mini lottery, and whoever has the most lottery tickets usually wins. But it's not guaranteed to be the case. You might get lucky. And what the mining equipment, the energy costs do is that the more mining power you have, the basically more lottery tickets you get.
Right.
And so, but the problem with that is if you go down the path of just not holding on your ticket, you can get lucky and you'll win a lot of Bitcoin that one day. The better way to do it, what they've done now is they have thing mining pools, is that you put your lottery ticket in a big pool, and if your pool wins, you get your share.
You get a share of that.
Right. And the cool thing about that is now there's 10, 15 different pools. And that way you with that, basically you're almost guaranteed to get income every single day.
You'll get something out of it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
However small that might be.
Yeah, you get tiny fractions versus winning the exact price. Yeah.
And it's not just the energy costs that have gone up, but it's also just because there are so many more miners, and that's because the operation has scaled so much. The Bitcoin in general, like there's also like a limit to how fast everyone can be, right? Depending on number of transactions and all of that. So it's also become slower, right? So
yeah, I mean, I really do think the way Satoshi Nakamoto, when he designed, the Bitcoin, I'd say algorithm, and honestly, is a genius. He should win the Nobel Prize, not just in economics, but probably in peace, in my opinion. And the reason why is it like, see, if it's game theory built into code and human behavior. Yeah. So the more people, the more the price goes up, the higher incentive is for people to mine, because the profitability to mine, because the price goes up. But then what happens is the more people that mine, the profitability goes down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And but what's really important, the reason why that's important is that all comes down to security. And so what it's kind of like this. Look at it. Imagine if Fort Knox was a big, it is a big place that stores gold. But imagine the number of security guards that are around it increases or decreases based on how much gold is in the vault. And so if the price of gold goes up, a bunch more security officers come there. But as the price of gold goes down, you don't need all that security. So so you only need, like, say 10 security officers versus 10,000. And it's really interesting. It's a mechanism to come using game theory to kind of protect, let's say, the actual code, and to make sure no one's stealing the gold. And it can get very complex. I don't want to get too deep, but my big one recommendation for anyone who's listening to the show, and if you don't know about Bitcoin, you should without a doubt read the white paper. It's a little bit hairy.
The original white paper.
Yeah, the original white paper is written now, 13 years ago.
2008, yeah.
Yeah, and that one, it's a short 10-page paper. It'll be as influential as the U.S. Constitution, I think.
Wow, that's quite a statement. And I mean, now that we are in 2021, there's a huge amount of people, like you said, who are interested in crypto, interested in Bitcoin. The price has gone up, gone down. It's done exactly what it's been doing for so many years, but the levels are much higher. So there's obviously a lot more, I would say, cash in the system. It's very real now, right? I mean, it's no longer a speculative or whatever you may call it in the early days. So what is the kind of innovation that you, as your CEO of ZebPay, of a company which is sort of enabling the ecosystem at the same time, building this into a business, which is not just support people who are interested in the technology, interested in the coin, but also make this a livelihood for people. So what are you guys doing as a product company, as a tech company, to try and foster that?
Yeah, great. Yeah, exactly. So a great question. There's a couple. Really, the over the next couple of years, it's really fine tuning stuff. The core foundational layer on technology is there, and so one is education, right? And so kind of let's say teaching people about stuff, but in very easy ways. So we're investing a lot of stuff into education and teaching the core principles of it. The other really important thing is people kind of, get really excited about Bitcoin as the price starts going up like crazy, right?
Yeah.
And it's great for us, great for business, all those other things. But the best time to invest, honestly, is just buying small amounts over the long term. Let's say, I use the term dollar cost averaging, but it's rupee cost averaging, however you want to call it. It's just averaging into the asset over long. And then it's not a very complex. In India, it's called SIP, right? So so with SIP, we have a great new product called Zeb.com, which really just in one click, you pick 100 rupees, and you can put in 100 rupees a week, 100 rupees a day, however you want to do it. And that's what we recommend. We don't recommend actually trading the asset a whole lot. We recommend investing for the long run. So doing an SIP program is a huge factor. The next kind of big innovation is allowing people to basically borrow and lend on their crypto. And you'll see a lot of people talk about this. They actually want to basically put their Bitcoin, and what can I do with that Bitcoin? And the really big thing is you can actually get interest on it, right?
Oh, really?
And if you go look at any asset class like cash, real estate, stocks, the biggest aspect of valuation for the asset class, honestly, is, let's say, the income from it, right? So people talk about, let's say, for a real estate, like the net operating income, like how much does that real estate give you in rental income? And for a dividend, they'll talk about a dividend yield. And for in a bank account, you'll get interest, right? Or even for a bond. Now, when you say crypto, people are like, oh, I don't get a yield. But no, you actually can. And so you can actually deposit your Bitcoin and get interest paid in Bitcoin. And so right now, real time on ZebPay, we pay 3% on Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin's worth nothing, it's not beautiful. But when is Bitcoin now at $40,000? If you're getting if you have one Bitcoin, right, you're making $1,200 a year in income, right? And there's different rates for different types of things, like based on how long you lock it up and things like that. But that's a really cool innovation that's happening now, and lending and borrowing against crypto is going to be probably I think that's going to be probably the business model of the future. Most people are making money off of this versus actually, let's say, transaction costs, which we make money right now.
Right. Yeah, I think the transactions, and that's been the most popular sort of way of all these exchanges operating worldwide, and just enabling the trade to happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But what you're talking about is another layer.
The biggest factor is fees, and you'll see, the very large companies like Coinbase, they'll charge, say, luckily ZebPay, we've lowered our fees dramatically. We're probably one of the lowest fees, in the industry. It's about 10, 15 basis points. And on intraday, it's even lower. But like I said, I actually think fees are slowly going to zero. In fact, my goal, sounds odd, is to drive our fees down to almost nothing, right? To zero, right? So it's free for you to buy and sell. And then the way we really make money in the long run is the relationship and helping you kind of use your crypto asset to achieve certain financial goals.
Right. But so if I could, right? So the way that so what you're saying is that right now, this would be my question here, and I'm sorry, I'm floating around it. Isn't it first needed for this to be accepted more as a currency before it can be kind of exploited in the ways that you are discussing in like what you're talking about in terms of like interest or borrowing against it or something like that? Is I don't know, but I feel like that's like that's what you do with like quote unquote money, right? I mean, like, and this, I get that this is designed as a currency, but it doesn't have that same acceptance as a currency at this point in time. So aren't more complicated financial transactions, and I get that interest and
Products,
lending is not super complicated, but still it's a more complicated kind of, it's a next level, next order kind of this. So how does that kind of play out in your mind?
Yeah, sure. So you're absolutely right. So like over the next years or decades, we're still way far away from people even understanding what this stuff is, right? Like I think probably 10 to maybe 15 million people in India own crypto, or have registered to own crypto, and so that's less than 1%. Let's say 1%, right? But to reality, the people that actually own is probably less than 1%, and so. You are right that it probably needs to be more widespread, but the difference is that like it's happening. You might have heard this news that El Salvador now say recognizes Bitcoin as legal tender. Right. You can actually pay, which is a huge factor this year. I actually predicted this would happen a couple years ago. See, when things like that happen, El Salvador is not that may be the first, but they're not going to be the last. I mean that more countries will copy them. And on the question of like, does the asset need to be widely accepted? I don't think Bitcoin. See, when I first got into Bitcoin, there was this question: what is it? Is it like a store of value? Is it a cryptocurrency? Is it currency? Is it a medium of exchange? To me, it's very clear what Bitcoin is now. It's really it's winning the store of value game. It's a crypto asset. It's actually a misnomer, and it's kind of funny. When you invent something. You can hit so many things well, but the inventor might just have a bad idea of the name, right? So you might call it the horseless carriage, but that's an awful name. It's called a car, or an automobile, right? And they imagine, oh, you have a great horseless carriage. What does that mean, right? And so with cryptocurrency, it's a misnomer to me. It's not really meant to be a currency. It's meant to be a store of value, and as that. I think that investment thesis is playing out, is being proven. Then what happens is if you have something that's a store of value, finance is built on top of that, right? So things like money. See, what most people about money is they think of a stable asset, and so there's things now called stable coins, and those are actually more often used on things like on Ethereum, right? And that's really cool that the innovation that Ethereum's done. Ethereum's basically has helped design a crypto asset which doesn't fluctuate in price, right? Bitcoin basically kind of was this big bang and invented this whole new universe of crypto and digital assets. But like, if that's hydrogen, I look at ether being kind of like oxygen. And the reason why I'm saying it's different is it's a more complex element. But the thing is, you put them together and you have hydrogen and oxygen together, you can make water. And the reason I'm saying that why this is really cool is Bitcoin and ether, I think, are more powerful together than they are separate. And what you can do, to me, what the water is, it's like stable coins, right?
Okay.
And it's a decentralized apps and contracts with stability. See, you might want, let's say, 10% interest, right? But you want it on a stable asset. If I'm putting in 1 crore rupees, I want to make, let's say 12% interest. You make 1 lakh per month, and you're happy with that. But you don't want the price to go up or down. You don't want the fluctuations of Bitcoin.
I don't the 1 crore to be 50 lakhs, and then I'm getting 6 lakhs, and then the 1 crore becomes
12 lakhs. And so what the really cool innovations happened that happened around 2015, 16 is Ethereum came on board and it designed these really cool things with smart contracts and decentralized apps. And what you hear about right now, the really big thing now is DeFi, it's decentralized finance.
Yes.
And DeFi is like, honestly, same, say after the Big Bang, these are like galaxies. These are really cool really, really cool innovations. And you're seeing all this innovation happening, like all this star formation happening. And with DeFi, you have things like decentralized exchanges, you have decentralized stable coins, you have decentralized, let's say, lending and borrowing. So now what does ZebPay do? ZebPay, is really an innovation. A lot of people don't want to get into DeFi because it's complex. And if you make a mistake, you can lose all your money. What I see ZebPay doing in the long run is we kind of like make DeFi easy. You come in and imagine going bowling. We put the gutter lines up, and so you don't kind of like fail, right? We put the training wheels on your bike, and so you make sure you don't fall down. And that way, you still get access to these great yields on DeFi, but you don't have to worry about all the complexity of losing your money. And so right now, if you go look in America, the most you're getting in interest in a bank is like 1%. It's like nothing. Right. And you talk about inflation. Without doubt, inflation's happening now. You can see it throughout the world. And so what really cool about DeFi is you can get strong. You actually can get, I know in India 12% is not a great return, but in the US that's a really good return. Right. You can get solid 12% returns using DeFi, and that's what we want to be doing.
Can you elaborate on that actually? Because that's an interesting point. I mean, I understand you're making it safe and easy, and but let's get into a little with an example of what someone can do as an individual consumer, or even as I don't know if you're catering to like businesses as well.
Yeah, sure.
So what are the options?
First about the consumer side. On the consumer side, that's what we do. So the great thing about ZebPay is you can earn and lend on crypto assets. So if you have Bitcoin or Ether or a stable coin, and these stable coins are called USDT, Tether, or USDC.
Tether, yes.
And there's another thing called DAI, which is a decentralized stable coin. You can just buy, for example, let's do a more reason about 10 lakhs. You take your savings, you save a ton of money, you can put 10 lakhs of stable coin, right? And you take that money, and you literally you convert it to a crypto stable asset versus keeping it in 10 lakhs in INR.
Right.
Okay. Now, 10 lakhs is roughly about what, maybe $7,000. Hold on, is it
it's like
it's $1,500, $1,500.
Yeah, $15,000.
15,000.
Yeah. So $15,000.
$1,500 is a lakh, so 15,000.
Yeah, so $15,000, and then now the problem is you are taking the risk of the dollar INR risk, right? But now here's the big question is, and I'm gonna ask you guys, if you have rupees, maybe you want to do for all of it. Are you fine holding dollars?
To a certain extent, yes.
You're probably fine. Because you can tell you why. It's kind of weird. Is it? It's not guaranteed to happen, but the dollar is considered. It's in a sense considered to be a little more stable and quote unquote a slightly better fiat currency. Right. Than
more accepted worldwide, globally.
It's more accepted. It doesn't depreciate as much against other things, right? And so Now that means you are taking the risk of buying a dollar, but it's not a real dollar. You're buying a stable dollar, and then you take that $15,000 you have, right, that 10 lakhs, and you then you come and deposit at ZebPay, and then what we do is we pay 12% interest off that, right? Let's say 10% to keep the math simple. Right. And how do we actually do that? We then take those stable coin, and then we lend that out to other people who give us collateral, right? If you have one Bitcoin, for example, you have one Bitcoin that's worth $30,000, and you want to borrow $15,000, I say, listen, you give me one Bitcoin, I'll give you a 50% loan to value off your $40,000 Bitcoin, meaning that I can give you up to a $20,000 credit line, and I give him $15,000. And what he does, he pays, let's say 12% to me, right? And then I give 10% to you.
So you got 2% spread.
Right. I make a 2% spread, and it's very safe because he's giving me full collateral. He's giving me 2x collateral.
Right.
Right. Meaning the Bitcoin price has to drop by half, which by the way can happen, but it doesn't happen overnight. Right.
Right.
People are thinking that Bitcoin's only dropped by that much. Probably it might fall maximum 20% in one day. Right.
Yeah.
And then what we do is if it falls enough, then we go back to the person who wants to borrow. Hey, listen, please give us more Bitcoin, or your Bitcoin was worth $40,000, now it's worth $30,000, and you have a loan of $20,000. If you don't, you have 2 days to pay us down, or we're gonna sell down
liquidate
your Bitcoin.
it.
Yeah. And it's still way over collateralized.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And is this is this just your model, or is this happening everywhere? Is this No, obviously the risks are different, which people take.
Yeah.
But this is happening.
It's happening around globally. I'd say ZebPay is definitely one the leading companies in India doing this. I don't think there's very many others in India doing it. And the other big thing is, do you need a license for this? This is reason why we don't touch rupees. All of this kind of lending and borrowing is happening in a sense in Singapore, right?
Right.
And so what you're doing is, and that's what you have to do with crypto assets. If you start touching the fiat on ramps, you definitely have to get an NBFC license. And because Singapore is officially because ZebPay is officially a Singapore company, we're working with the MAS. We're fully licensed in Singapore, and we're kind of working out a Singapore law. And so, and by the way, this is not just available for India. If you're in Australia, if you're in the Cayman Islands, if you're in Japan, you can do this also with crypto assets. The only place you can't do is basically where you and I are in America, because America has pretty strict, let's say, financial control laws.
Oh, that's interesting. And just to go into a little bit more on the DeFi side as well, right? I mean, this is just one sort of ability to obviously use your crypto, earn interest on it, and obviously this is just one layer of the financial service that you're putting on top of crypto. What else using, since you mentioned DeFi, and just to demystify it a little bit for everyone listening, what else is possible? And I mean, you may or may not be thinking in that direction, but what else is possible, which you personally think is the way this will become more standardized?
No, totally. Actually, let me on the last question. I want to talk about, obviously, really big thing is NFTs. People, I'm assuming you guys have heard of non-fungible tokens.
Of course,
right,
yes.
Of course.
Yeah. So there's some really cool stuff happening there. But the other thing I want to touch upon from the last question is a really big things happened in the past couple of years is people are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet directly, and that's what ZebPay does, right? You hear about Tesla buying Bitcoin, or other large companies doing this, and so. The other recommendation I'd have, you're talking about on like the retail versus the institutional side.
Yes.
And we're actually talking to, there's a lot of companies right now that are very interested in, we're talking to them about how they can actually, invest, in crypto on the corporate side. And so a lot of companies, they have, for unutilized assets, they might be sitting on, their treasury. And so the big question is, do you really want to sit on something only getting, let's say, in dollars getting 1%, or even in rupees getting 10%? And so people are slowly putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 5% of their total, let's say, liquid assets into crypto assets, and that's a big trend over happening the next couple of years. But the other thing I'd say is with NFTs, non-fungible tokens are really, really cool. And let me just kind of tell people what an NFT is. So a fungible token is like Bitcoin or Ethereum, and what this means is if we each have one Bitcoin, guys, it's not going to be, your Bitcoin's worth the exact same as my Bitcoin, and it doesn't matter, right? Like, we can go trade it one for one. The really good thing about that is everyone's equal, and there's a very big liquid market for it. So if you want to buy one Bitcoin, or if you want to break it up into half a Bitcoin, you can slice it into tiny pieces. A non-fungible token is each unique, and you really can't slice and dice it. Meaning that it's like a baseball card. Imagine a digital baseball, or a cricket card, or a painting.
A collectible.
Right.
It's a collectible. Yeah, exactly. It could be the ownership of an MP3 file,
Mm-hmm.
and each song is different, right? And so what's really cool about the blockchain is it's made some innovations on proving ownership for digital assets. Before, you could never prove that your, let's say, photo was the original photo, or that your MP3 file was the original file, or your video file, or this podcast is the original one. In the future, what will happen is people will actually be able to kind of mint the original files, and within the NFT, even put in copyright data. Okay, listen, we've made a podcast, right? We've minted it, and you can use this podcast, but you have to pay, a fraction of a penny if you replay certain parts of it, and you have to point that to this address, right? And so over what I think happens in the next couple of years, a lot of real innovations happening in NFTs, and you've probably heard about the last, let's say, year or so. There's some crazy things that some of these digital arts have sold for like tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And
Jack's first tweet.
Yeah, exactly.
That was
the first tweet sold for a ton of money. There's these things called CryptoPunks, which are selling for millions of dollars.
I saw that $55 million yesterday.
Yeah, yep. And then
one person, $55 million. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, and so people are buying. There are all sorts of things. And now the question is, how do you do that? It's a mix. I'd say the art of the future is not about a paintbrush and chemicals and technique and that. The art of the future is about code, and the real innovation in code is what happens. And so that's what's really cool. So these really quote unquote beautiful pieces of NFT have code built into beauty, built into utility, and that's what's going to be amazing.
Interesting.
I mean, I have a comment there that when you explain it, it obviously makes sense that there is it's a proof of ownership, it's a proof of lineage, heritage, whatever you may call it, right? In the art world, especially, that's a big deal, and it's an entire industry around how to protect and prove it. This is obviously making it digital, so it makes sense as a process, as a concept. But with a lot of things digital being easier to copy than let's say the original, let's say real world physical stuff, a lot of folks tend to think that it's also a little pointless to like why mine and what's the purpose of owning something if everyone can copy it easily?
There's two comments there. One is the provenance is so important, right? So when you buy a Picasso, right, you might own it now, but like the really important thing is having an art deal kind of, hey, it's actually authentic, so we can prove the ownership. But how can you actually really prove it? You only kind of like trust kind of like an expert's guide on this. The really cool thing with the blockchain, you actually can prove ownership, you can prove something's been minted and it's exchanged hands between A and B and all up to Z, the A, B, C, D, all the way to the very end. And then the next thing about that, you're actually right in the sense that there's really no benefit of owning if you have the first copy or the 10th copy of some image, it might have nice bragging rights that you own it. And I'd say 80% of the price is because of that, because of bragging rights. The second most important thing is going to be copyright image. And so what will happen is there's not actually, this is because I'm a lawyer, the laws have not yet caught up with the technology. And what I think happens in the next decade is global copyright and intellectual property laws are going to connect into these blockchains. And here's a really good example of what I mean by this. For example, some of the most expensive digital assets in the world are domain names.
Yeah.
And now the cool thing about domain names, you can actually have decentralized domain names. That's what people are working on right now, right? If you want to own, let's say, Shunya.One, anything you want. If I own Rahul.com, you can actually do that in a decentralized way. And one of the most popular things on Ethereum is this thing called the Ethereum name service, ENS. And you can buy like Rahul.eth, right? And you can actually pick. Now, the problem is someone will be squatting on that. But the cool thing is it's censorship resistant. It's an auction mechanism, and it's working. In fact, one of our really excited, we're launching a really cool thing with a great company called a Yat. And Yats are really super interesting. they're basically an emoji username, right? And literally, they just launched the one which we love the most is a zebra emoji yesterday. And so what you can do is, instead of being known as, let's say, Rahul at ZebPay.com, my username would be zebra, right, as an emoji. And here's what's wild. This business, it's a company, but they're building it in a decentralized way. They're selling these emojis, and they've had $20 million in sales, right? People are buying emojis for, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Is zebra like an accurate
Why
thing?
are
I'm
they
just
buying
looking at your
emojis?
background.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at your background
Yeah,
right
exactly.
now. And you got
Exactly.
the zebra prints right there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's also the ZebPay logo,
Yeah.
and I mean,
Yeah.
you
And
guys,
so
you have the theme
I'll tell
going
you
on.
exactly. And the reason why we're working on a really cool product with the Yat, a partnership with them, is we're trying to build in a loyalty program into our product where these emoji usernames are kind of like your loyalty card. And what happens is the more zebras you have in your emoji, the kind of like the more, in a sense, higher your membership. So that's one let's say variable. The other variable is the less number of emojis you have, more. So the kind of the most powerful, let's say, card would be a single letter emoji, right? Single letter zebra, right? Then the double zebra would be like the second most powerful. But if you had zebra heart or zebra hat or zebra, thumbs up, right? That would be more powerful than a zebra thumbs up, right? And so these are really cool NFTs. These things are actually selling for like hundreds and thousands of dollars, right? And what we do is we're gonna work with this company, so give some away to our most loyal members, right, as prizes, and it's theirs. They can keep it. We don't own it. It's censorship resistant, and then they can use it to unlock value. For example, if you imagine you have a 3-letter emoji, right, with at least 2 zebras in it, we'll give you everything for free, right? And it's a way of doing, let's say, a gold or platinum card with an NFT, and that's what we're going to see some really cool innovation happening here as well.
Wow. Okay.
And a lot of this is because it's again, just because you are ZebPay, you have a zebra theme, and you're choosing that people use zebra emoji, right? So it's like it's also your brand. So the value is also locked to the what they can associate with your brand.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So for us, the really cool thing about this thing, and I'd recommend people to go check out y.atyat, is we want to partner with them because we love the zebras, and we want people to kind of like, for fun, buy these emoji usernames. The cool thing is that they can resell them, but like the ones that are most popular are I mean, you can pretty much guess what they are. They're things like, rocket ship moon, for like, it means like to the moon,
right?
Or like pizza. Because people love the pizza emoji. People love like, I bought the thumbs up one. You're gonna find this bonkers, but let's go ahead and talk. I paid $200,000 for that. Right?
What?
Yes. And now the thing is, we're also, side note, investors in the company. But like I said, it's not just me buying it. The people they've sold almost 150 of these 2-letter emojis. At the very minimum, they cost $200,000. Right.
Wow.
And so, and an article just came out in TechCrunch about this, and even the 3-letter ones go for like tens of thousands of dollars, and you can actually go on to OpenSea and see people bidding on these right now.
This is like basically like the second wave of domain names, like what you
it's a land
said,
grab, right? Essentially, wow.
It's a land grab.
Yeah, exactly. It's the second wave of domain names, and I'm also on the board of a company called Brave Browser, and that's when they're working with Yat on this. Is that you'll be able to put in like zebra into the zebra emoji into the browser bar, and it'll automatically get sent to the ZebPay website. But what's also cool, it's not just the ZebPay website. That one emoji will resolve both the website, the email address, and the payment address. So, for example, if you have a customer complaint, to say, man, ZebPay is down today, it's crap, and send a note to Zebra, and what we'll do is it'll resolve, right? You don't need to send it to like customer care at Zebra. It'll figure out where it's coming from, and using AI, it'll send. And then you can also send Bitcoin to that address, or Ether, or Litecoin, and you don't have to worry about sending. You don't have to worry about a long string of letters. It's an easy way to resolve with one address.
We're getting towards the end, but before Shiladitya does his traditional wrap-ups and stuff, I really want to get one question in, right? What are you, because this was all really interesting, but I really want to know, what do you hope for from the Indian government from a regulatory sense, right? What is your like kind of this, right? I think that what would be your ideal thing that if you could write the law, what would you write, and what do you think is going to happen?
Sure. So crypto assets are really, really cool. What ends up happening, actually, let me stop here. I don't know if can you guys hear the train? Give me a second.
Yeah, it's coming up. I think you should
Yeah, I'll go on
pause
mute.
and then do your answer. But yeah, that's a good question. It's an important question.
Yeah, I think we should get that in because we are now longer than we normally are. But
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
yeah.
We're gonna use the zebra double emoji line for sure in the promo.
I love
So,
it.
like, we're gonna use this in the promo for sure. People
So
need to know this is a thing. But yeah, so go ahead.
Great. So yeah, on the regulation stuff, I kind of look at crypto assets kind of regulated in three ways in the longer term. One is to say it's a stock, right? People will be probably making stock tokens, and what this would be is this would be like Apple or Tesla or Reliance equity, but instead of being traded on let's say the National Stock Exchange or the New York Stock Exchange, it actually trades on a blockchain, and you don't need a stock exchange then. What's really cool, but they're still regulated. You still have to comply with securities laws. Those will exist as one aspect. I think stable coins will list as another type of asset. That'll probably be regulated by the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, or the Federal Reserve Bank, right? While the security tokens are going to be regulated by the SEBI or the SEC, right? And then the last set of tokens are, I'm going to call it, let's say, open, public, decentralized blockchains. These are things like Bitcoin and Ether. And what I think what happens with Bitcoin and Ether is these type of assets probably have the least amount of regulation. They say, hey, listen, as long as a blockchain is on the path of being decentralized or decentralized, it might be some sort of, I say, token commission, which says these platforms are considered to be decentralized public blockchains, and then they might have a rating for them. Kind of like the way, imagine when you go watch a movie, right? You have, here's a G for general audience, this is R for restricted. And the way you do that is that, basically if a movie is G, pretty much everyone can watch it and not be offended, right? And so what we want a general audience type blockchain. And I would say that's Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin and Ethereum are like general, it's for all ages, it's decently safe. Those two are probably the biggest and the best.
Understood. Yeah.
Yep. And then you can go like, PG-13 and PG and R. What happens to you there is, hey, listen, this blockchain is not as decentralized. It's not as, open. There might be more attacks on this, and, go here. And then the R ones are, hey, we have no clue what these things are. Maybe NC-17, like, we have no clue about these blockchains. We don't do your own diligence and then do it. Now, what's interesting thing about this is that different countries might rate these things differently. For example, the censorship board of India on movies doesn't rate the way that the United States government rates it, right? And that's what I think happens all along. What happens is individual local governments probably have their own ratings for some of these open decentralized platforms, and some countries which are more lax will say everything is G, right? And some countries are more strict will say, hey, listen, if it's got, unless it's like Bitcoin, we don't allow it. And that's why what's really cool is Bitcoin and I'd say Ether right after are the best coins. And my highest recommendation would be for most people, don't go out and start buying a bunch of coins. Those two are the best. If you just go 50-50 into those coins, you buy a little bit over the long run, you should be set for that. That's the best long-term strategy.
Interesting. It's really interesting because one of the so it must be really frustrating to you because based on what you're saying, you see a clear path to how government can regulate this in a reasonable, equitable way, right? But there's a lot of rhetoric on the crypto enthusiast side, which is like, hey, we're gonna take out we're gonna basically this is the end of sovereignty, this is the end of centralized banking and stuff like that. And so that must be particularly frustrating to you to hear that kind of stuff because that's the stuff which I feel like the governments are reacting to and the RBI is reacting to.
Yeah, there's a lot of crypto anarchists and people who are like, super libertarian. Now, the really cool thing is these ideas were kind of born from that fire, but I don't believe that. I think government, Bitcoin and things like that are going to exist with governments, right? And the really cool thing about, let's say, the like any innovation in these revolutionary times, right? The idea pops up. Let's just say, with the U.S. Constitution, right? The idea of separation of powers between the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch really cool idea. And then, I mean, like those ideas had kind of existed before, but they kind of put it together into one use. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is people can build on that. So I like on these crypto anarchists who think they're taking out the banks, man, you know, I don't think that happens. I look at all this stuff as being innovation. Like just because the light bulb came out, it doesn't mean that people don't use candles anymore. People still use candles, they use them differently. And so just because I think people use banks, but they'll use them in a different way.
Cool.
Awesome. I mean, thanks for that, because I think, you know, forward looking is always sort of also my last question, usually, when I say, okay, where do you go from here? And, but thanks for answering that, Rahul. I think that's exactly what I would have gone into, because again, the space is so new, even in relative terms of evolution of an asset class like this, like you said, today we're in the 10,000 to 100,000 range for Bitcoin. I mean, literally a decade from now, we might be saying something else, right? It might be a way, way higher and a whole different level and a whole different economy around it.
No, absolutely. My general counsel, legal counsel, you know, so doesn't talk about target price. I don't know where the price of Bitcoin is going up, but like obviously, I eat my own cooking. I am way invested in ZebPay is, and you know, we believe that the price of Bitcoin is still way undervalued, and it's going to increase massively over the next several decades. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think something which people understand now. So people are going to get in at whatever price they can. They're going to obviously try out these new financial products. Of course, they can use ZebPay with what you already offer today, which is like they can lend off of their coin, so earn interest. And there's surely going to be a lot more innovation coming from there. You said a large part of what your focus is on education, and of course, you know, expanding the addressable market of people who use these technologies and these platforms. So are you someone who is reachable in case anyone listening in wants to talk to you on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle? Where do you recommend they go to learn more about, obviously, ZebPay and everything else, if you want to do a shout out?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, for the website, it's just zebpay.com, ZebPay.com. Yeah, I am on Twitter. Obviously, people who are in the crypto space, you see Twitter is a huge, huge sounding board for like people massive on this. My Twitter handle is just if you Google Rahul and ZebPay or Twitter, you'll find it. But it's Ethos. You'll see that I'm a really big believer in Ethereum. ETH_US. And if you just go to ZebPay.com, you can also see you can find out. You can just tweet at us there, or Twitter/ZebPay. You'll find us there as well.
Awesome. I'd just like to remind everybody quickly, if you are enjoying the show, please tell somebody else about it. Also, please do a please do a rating or a recommendation wherever you're listening to this, on Apple or Spotify or wherever.
And every time we talk about crypto on this show, I keep remembering that we one day, like when we started the show back in 2017, again, it was pre the super hype of crypto, and I used to say that we should have a Shunya coin.
Yes, I know. We spoke
probably
about
worth nothing, zero right now, like its name says.
Hey, you should still do it now, man. I'll buy some. But I'm just real quick. Do you guys own any? If not, my biggest recommendation is buy small amounts. You know.
Yeah. So basically, the pandemic killed my poker night, and so the money I lose every month at poker went into basically all that stuff.
And that's what happened. The really cool thing about the whole industry is that I mean, if you want to do stuff virtual, it's one of the best ways of like kind of having fun virtually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great.
Yes, very much. And I think anyone listening in, the kind of audience we have definitely has dabbled in crypto and Bitcoin and Ether, if not anything else. So. Thanks so much for this, Rahul. This is a great chat. I definitely got to learn a lot more about the industry, which I know is fairly deep, so talked about, but yet so little, not understood, I would say, completely. So it's good to hear. I'm not sure if I'm going to be investing in emojis right away, but I definitely will continue investing in Bitcoin.
It's the 2 thumbs up. Zero, thanks guys. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it, and would love to be back anytime. And then if you have any questions about any of this stuff at all, just reach out or tweet at me, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Rahul.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rahul.
Thanks.
IVM.